Hi, everybody. So nice to be back and talking to you about normalizing third-party reproduction. Actually, what we're talking about is making everybody feel comfortable with how they were conceived and being able to communicate that to the medical field. And I am so excited today because we are going to have a donor-conceived person on to talk about it and share. And I think she is here right now. Let me just double check and see where she is. Okay, well, she'll be here soon. We have Emma Grønbæk coming joining us today, and many of you may know through Instagram, is a donor conceived child, and I believe that her handle is donor conceived. We have to double check that when she comes on. And she has written a book, and she works in the community, and she's done quite a bit. And here she is right now. Okay, great. Yes, I gotta put my glasses on. I'm so sorry. Excellent. Okay, she should be on any second now. And I'm looking forward to that.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Those first few minutes when you're trying to get people on, I always find myself rambling.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
How are you? I'm sorry about the time change. Do you know, I got up for this event I was supposed to go to in the UK, and the clock had switched, and I didn't know it. And I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning so that I could be on right before I started work. And it turned out the time switched, and it wasn't starting for another hour, so I couldn't even join.
Yeah, crazy. I was also very, very confused about the time for today, but no worries, we'll manage.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, it's so nice to have you here, Emma. I'm really, really so thrilled to be able to talk to you with everybody, and hopefully people will be joining today about this initiative that we're working on to have people talk about the significance of adding donor conception and adoption to the medical intake so that we can improve health outcomes mentally and physically and even, the costs of healthcare treatment. So all that. But, I was thinking maybe we could start just talking a little bit about you for people who don't know you.
Yeah.
And I, when we chatted, I learned so much more about you than I had known.
Yeah,
So pretty fascinating, actually. You've done so much.
done quite a bit so far.
Yeah, I mean, finding out how you were conceived and then embracing the community and working in the field and writing a book is quite a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. How did you decide to share all of this with everybody? Like, what was
So,
the motivation for that?
yeah, so I think when I was studying to become a nurse, I realized that everything in the community, which I saw on social media or on television or wherever I looked for things related to donor conception, that it had a really negative approach. So and I just felt like that was such a different story than what me and my family had experienced, and I thought that it made maybe a wrong impression to the people who wanted to have donor conceived children. So that was actually why I started doing the work I did. And eventually, when I started blogging, that was the first thing I did. And then I just had so much response and found out that this forum was really needed in the community, I think.
Yeah, it is. So, can I ask how old you were when you found out?
How old I am now, or what
No, no, when
we
you
are.
found out that you were conceived.
So I've always known that I was donor conceived. I think I was a 3 or something when my parents started to share the story with me. So they did like a children's book, and then we read it as a nighttime story, and then eventually I just understood more and more, and yeah.
Yeah. So it's something you've always known. And it's there's a difference between always knowing and finding out later.
Yeah, so there's never been like a shock or um, some point where I could feel like my parents have had kept a secret for me, and I feel like that has been really important to me and to them as well, um, and to our relationship.
Yeah, it's it is. The philosophy has changed through the years. And so many people who are donor conceived people who are in their 20s or 30s or 40s even today, um, they may not have found out until much later. And there is a lot of emotion tied to that, of course. And there's a lot of medical information also that people may or may not know. And so the fact that you're a nurse and you work in a clinic is amazing to me. When you told me that, I was like a little bit blown away. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
People, how did you decide to do that? How did you decide to work within the field?
So I think when I was still studying in this, I tend to spend more and more time on either writing the book, writing blogs, doing different kinds of things related to my donor conception and sharing within the community. And then I think it just got bigger and bigger. And I think it's a really interesting field, and it is amazing to be able to help people with the one of the biggest things in life, to have children. And I know from my parents how what a struggle it can be and how hard it can be. So I think that was, I thought, if I have the opportunity to help people with this, that is what I want to do. No doubt about that.
Yeah, it's something so lovely about that because what you said is very significant. Like the parents go through such a struggle in the beginning that
Mm-hmm.
very often you don't necessarily recognize what this child is going to go through and then the parent. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why it's so important to have people like you or uh, other people who have gone through the process, even if it's going to a therapist or a support group or some kind of assistance and understanding that we want to help that the parents go through the process so that their journeys when they have this child will allow them to feel comfortable in sharing the journey with the child.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So I know you also do work in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So you do some education there in schools and in different places, and they see you,
Sorry?
and people see you as somebody who has been conceived through a donor, which is incredible.
Yeah, I try to do whatever I can, and just whenever people want to explain our family situation. So yeah, don't know what to say.
Okay, well, that's okay. So when I approached you about this, about coming on,
Hmm.
and I must admit, and my fault, I probably, I follow you, but maybe I don't follow as much as I, I should with everybody. I try to, but at any rate, when you had said you were a nurse, I found that fascinating. And then when you said you worked in the field, and I thought, oh my goodness, it would be so wonderful to talk to you because of this initiative, which
Yeah,
is to get people comfortable, at least in the medical community, talking about just asking the question, right? Just ask on that family history how somebody was conceived.
mhm.
Because what we're seeing is that it is impacting treatment. And and I'm wondering, when I approached you with it, what you were thinking, if you could share what you were thinking and why you thought this would be a good initiative, not just for the United States, but for the United Kingdom, for all over. This is really global.
Sorry, I think the internet is playing tricks on me here, but
Well, I was asking why you thought this initiative was important or why
okay.
you wanted to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so I think this initiative is important because I think sometimes I've experienced that when you don't feel like anything related to donor conception, I tend to sometimes forget. Now I work with it so much that I don't. But beforehand, I could go to the doctor. They would ask me, "Do you have any? Do either of your parents have any medical history in the family?" And at first, I would just say no, and then I was like, "Oh, wait a second," and then I would explain my situation and that I'm donor conceived and that I wouldn't really be able to address that. So I think sometimes people either forget or think it's hard to tell people about their situation, and also a personal experience as well with experiencing my lactose intolerance, which is inherited from the donor, and that's something that we struggled a lot to find out what was. I was 20 years of age before we realized that that was a problem. And yeah, I told you as well that my parents are doctors and in different fields that should have maybe connected the dots a bit sooner, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so wild because here you're a nurse, your parents are both physicians,
Mm-hmm.
and yet you have this medical condition, and people just become a family, and they don't necessarily think about the donor. They don't necessarily think about that DNA that maybe will impact a medical condition. And
Mm-hmm.
so, thank goodness you were able to make that correlation so that they could take care of this so that you could feel better.
Yeah, I think that the important thing is also to that instead of moving in the wrong direction whenever you're thinking, or maybe you have some condition, and then you're looking at the parents, or you had a case where they were looking for something, and then the person wasn't even predisposed to this because of other family constellation. And I think that is just so important that we don't, I think our medical care, I can only speak for Denmark, but is so under a lot of pressure and doesn't have the time that they need often. So I think if you can cut off some of these unnecessary things, that would be great.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think just by making this simple change, then what we could do is we could say, wait a minute, let's not go down that path.
Yeah.
Maybe she is lactose intolerant. Maybe she has been struggling with, gastro problems for years and years and years, and we're not looking at this. We're looking at the parents who raised her,
Mm-hmm.
which is what people do. They look at the parents who've raised the child. And that makes sense, but we need to start to open up the world and understand that there are many ways to be conceived. And I hear this also about adopted children. You hear it
Yeah.
all the time. You forget, or you don't know, or you just don't want to say for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
All of it is fine, but at least be given the option to share that information if you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just another way to open up the conversation. What got me about this whole thing, because I've worked in healthcare for so many years myself, is that the healthcare community is not talking about it. They're not comfortable with it. And we need them to be comfortable with it so that donor conceived people and parents of donor conceived people can feel comfortable.
Yeah.
That's the big part.
I could imagine.
Yeah, so what I want to do, this is the next thing I want to do. I didn't really share this with you, but what I want to do is I want to start to collect information and I can't really see how many people are on right now, but I know when we play this back, other people will hear it, and I
Mm-hmm.
hope they are able to help me with this. I want to get together a listing of from donor conceived people and
Mm-hmm.
adoptees of when they've gone to the doctor and they haven't been asked and they've been treated for a condition based on not knowing that they were donor conceived. So I found out, about gastroenterology. I found out about neurology. I found out about cardiology. But I'd love to get as many individual stories as I can so that we can bring them to the medical community and say, look what we're missing just by not asking.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you have any ideas on how to go about getting that information, but I think it's something I want to really start to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I don't really know, but I'll definitely think about that. And
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I do have a petition on the website. So the plan is to use that petition, and now I want to capture these individual stories and bring them to the medical community so that they can see that it will help them medically in treating. It will help the person emotionally to feel like they fit. There's a place for them to just tick off that box, and it will help financially because you won't go down paths that you don't need to go.
yeah,
So I see it as a help in so many different ways.
I do as well, definitely. And it will only be more. Like there are more and more donor conceived individuals and people having different family constellations. So I think it's important to talk about also in the medical community.
I think we have to, we have to have them comfortable in asking the question and understanding that there are differences. I don't want to say that they don't understand, but what happens is, and you know this, right? And your parents know this. I know this healthcare system is a little bit different in the UK, but when it is on a form, you have to ask the question.
Yeah.
Because that screen does not let you go any further unless there's a box checked off. So, I've been working with some of the electronic medical record companies as well. It's a little challenging, but we're trying.
I bet it would be.
Yeah. But if everybody could just start to talk about it in their own sphere, and by you doing what you do, you're allowing people to see that it's a comfortable thing to do.
I hope so.
I think so. And that book you wrote, how do you think that helps?
I hope that it gives people a sense of how it can be to be donor conceived, and that it is normal that times has a big part in life, and then sometimes it doesn't really play any part at all, and you don't really think about it. So I hope that it can explain these different situations where it pops up and you have to deal with something, and then other than that, it being very not big issue really.
Right. So once you're able to tell the story and have people understand their birth story, well, then it's just a story. It's just part of how they came to be. And then the next part of how they came to be is the rest of life. And that's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is that we're all can be a family regardless of how the constellation of the family was put together.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on and chatting today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And thank you for what you do. I think it's amazing that you're a nurse in the field.
Thank you.
Yeah, you had mentioned to me that you go into schools and you talk to parents, and I think that's a gift. I do, so they can see you. So thank you, and I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you, and you too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, I'm going to try and end this now. I'm not good at this, so I always get nervous when I go to end. Okay, here, end.